Last year,
It's happened!
they went and took it.
He struck him out looking!
This year,
The Texas Rangers win the World Series!
they're here to run it back.
It's over!
This is Bleav in Texas Rangers, hosted by Mitch Ferreldis.
Apparently, there was a snake in that silver boot, and that snake, Jose Altuve. Welcome into another edition of Bleav in Texas Rangers, everybody. Make sure that if you like the podcast, you share it with your friends, family, fans of the Texas Rangers, of course. Rate it, download it, subscribe to it, let everybody that you can know about it, or just, you can give me critiques. I'm open to just about anything, but if you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to give it a shout out and give it the proper love that it deserves. So we're coming to you about a couple hours after the conclusion of the final game of the road trip series against the Houston Astros. So to quickly recap, they lost to the Astros today by a score of 8-5, and it really wasn't as close as that number gives it credit for. The Rangers were pretty, I don't want to say the word lifeless. They did finish with 10 hits. They definitely had opportunities where they got guys on base and they were trying to put something together. But at the same time, they were also 2 for 8 with runners in scoring position today. And they didn't really do a lot once Nate Eovaldi got behind, meaning after he allowed the first 5 runs of the game that he gave up through the first 4 innings. It was kind of another dud ender to a series. And I don't want to jump to this conclusion now, but we're halfway through this stretch of 17, I think it is, consecutive games that the Rangers are going to be playing. And I wonder if the word tired is starting to cross a lot of other people's minds when they watch this team, because you've got injury after injury, and we've got a bunch that we got to update here momentarily. But as a result of all these injuries, you're pressing guys into duty, getting a lot more at-bats, and you're having to call upon a lot more guys from the AAA level. And this is just barely after getting out of spring training. We're about, 2.5, 3 weeks into the season now. And it still feels like there's a lot of people that are, I don't want to say going through the motions, but they're not fully 100% ready for like the major league season yet. Like they're still just getting warmed up. And I get it. It's a marathon. It's definitely not a sprint. If it was a sprint, there would be an absurd start to the season, like what the Yankees are doing right now, what the Pirates are doing right now, right? It's a lot of growing pains right now, I think is the simplest way of saying it without it sounding offensive and without it sounding like a deep cut, especially because we're only so many games into the season so far. But with the loss, the Rangers now fall to 8-8 on the year, but that still keeps them, for the most part, atop the AL West, which is what you hope to do. But here's where, I mean, if you want to talk about division stuff this early and like standing stuff this early, we're not really going to go deep into it, but you have already played 7 games against the Astros now. There are less games against the division, and the Astros have the advantage right now. And as many of you remember, the season last year, I should say, ended where the Astros and the Rangers were tied, but the Astros had the head-to-head tiebreaker. So these games matter a ton. It's a bummer that it didn't go the Rangers' way in more of them, and that includes the series where the Rangers were hosting for 4, but they're already behind the 8 ball when it comes to that matter of fact, because they won't see the Astros nearly as much anymore, and already 7 games into the season they're behind, which is a bummer, but there's still plenty to be excited about. We got to see the debut of Cole Winn today, another one of the Rangers' top prospects, another major league debut. There's a lot of young talent that has been churning through the Rangers roster already early on this season. Cole Winn finished with an inning and 2/3, and he got his first major league K. He did allow a ground out that resulted in another run charged to Yerry Rodriguez, who did not have the best outing today, unfortunately. But at the same time, he looked pretty solid. The speed or the velocity was where you wanted it to be, and what we had been seeing and expecting from him, basically the way he's been pitching in Round Rock, right? The locations were relatively good, and he was forcing the swing and miss a good amount of the time. As far as his outing goes, he was able to force 4 swings and misses on just 21 pitches and 13 of the strikes that he threw. So he's got the location, he's got the command. It's still a little bit early to quickly jump to judgment as far as his performance, but especially because they put him in a situation where it was bases loaded and only 1 out, I thought Cole did fantastic in delivering in a clutch moment to try and keep the game from getting any further out of hand for Texas. Let's talk about the other 2 games. Saturday was rough. The first bad outing, too, that we've seen out of Jose Urena for this team. An inning and a third, 6 hits, 5 earned runs allowed, and 1 strikeout on just 22 pitches. So not only were the Astros able to get after him, they were able to get after him early and often as a result of such a low pitch count. Another outing where Andrew Heaney, he's throwing a lot of pitches and he's struggling to get guys out when he needs to. 3 2/3, 4 hits allowed, 2 earned runs. So the earned runnage is low at least, but you're still setting yourself behind. And Ronel Blanco apparently has the Rangers' number so far this year as the member of the Astros. 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 5 Ks. I mean, it was a tie game for the first 6 innings, and then the explosion just happened in the bottom of the 7th inning where the Astros got all of their runs courtesy of Kyle Tucker, Jeremy Pena, Jose. I mean, who else, right? The usual suspects for this interdivision rival. The offense in these last 2 games in particular, game 1 was pretty good. We'll talk about game 1 shortly. But these last 2, they scored a combined 7 runs to the Astros' 17. Got outscored by 10 runs in the most recent 2 games. Does that say more about the pitching? Or does that say more about an offense that put up 12 in the Friday night contest against the Astros? I wonder, going back to the original theme here, is, are they tired? Are they getting worn out? They've played, what is it now? Dating back to last week's, it's 4, 7. They've played 10 games straight now, and they've still got 7 more ahead of them without a break. There's no sign of slowing. There's no signs that significant reinforcements for the offense are coming back. They're thankfully going to get a pitching reinforcement, but it came at a cost, and we'll get more into the injuries later, like I said. But this was a rough series, and you would have thought it would have gotten a lot better given how well they performed in the first game against Houston. They scored 7 runs in the first 3 innings off of JP France, and you're thinking, oh, this is a non-factor. This is going to be a series for the Rangers where they're just going to beat the patooey out of the Astros for 3 games. And that absolutely did not happen. The script completely flipped on them in an instant. All right, so if we're going to talk about that Friday game, many of you know the name Angel Hernandez by now, and I hope you do. It's not for a good reason. So first, I want to get this out of the way. The Rangers won 12-8 in the series opener on the Friday. They got 12 hits, 12 runs. So if nothing else, the offense was working. Dane Dunning, once again, had a really solid start. We saw a different role for Jose Leclerc as well. He was the first pitcher after Dane Dunning through a scoreless 6th inning. So it was good to see Leclerc get some confidence back. It was a really rough outing for Brock Burke, who only was able to get 2 outs in the 7th inning after having surrendered 3 hits, 4 runs, and got a couple of strikeouts. And now he's not going to be pitching for a while. Again, that's a tease to the injuries. But the rest of the back end of the bullpen between Garrett Anderson, David Robertson, and Kirby Yates, it was everything you could have hoped for. I said Garrett. I meant Grant Anderson. Apologies, Grant. Jonah Heim had a big home run off of JP France. He drove in 4 of the team's runs. Adolis Garcia continues to have a day when it comes to playing against Houston and the Astros. He extended his Astros hitting streak, by the way. I think it's up to 5 now, if I'm not mistaken. He gets up for those games. It's a real bummer when the rest of the team can't deliver if just one guy is producing, but that 12-8 win was fantastic. But Angel Hernandez really ruined the evening for at least one spectator. Well, plenty of spectators, and at least one member of the Rangers lineup, and that member is Wyatt Langford. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, I'm sharing the screen of the umpire scorecard, courtesy of Umpire Scorecards. Shout out to the great work that they do. And you can see all of the red on the inner part of the plate. And if you really squint, I know it's blocked by our banner, our overlay, but you can see that the most impactful calls, as they say, if you look really closely and you don't think too hard about it, you'll realize they're all in the same at-bat. Does that tell you everything that you need to know about how rough of an experience it can be when Angel Hernandez is the man who is part of the umpiring crew? Now, to my recollection, he didn't have as great an impact on the other 2 games, but that Friday game could have gotten way out of hand based on just looking at this scorecard. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this. His hot zone is several inches on the inside part of the plate. Look at how many pitches he called strikes on the inner part of the plate. I'm not so beat up about the missed ball calls, or the missed strike calls, I should say, around the frame of the zone, but good Lord, Angel, come on, man. How much longer is your union going to back you? I really wonder. Thanks for indulging me in that, by the way. We mentioned Wyatt Langford. Why don't we skip ahead right now to
Wyatt Watch.
So far, it was a pretty solid series, a pretty good bounce back series for Wyatt. He went 4 for 10 against the Astros in these 3 games. He also scored 3 times. He collected, 4 total bases, and he drove in a couple of runs. He walked a couple of times, and he only struck out once, I should say. And as we very well learned, it wasn't really a strikeout. So I would say that this was a really solid series for Wyatt. He's now got the season batting average up to 254. He's driven in the 8 runs, and he's OPSing at 633. So that's really good to see. The slight uptick as a result of playing your division rival. I tell you, man, everybody is still on the edge of their seat waiting for that first home run. Everybody is just begging for him. And I mean begging for him to hit one out of the park sooner rather than later. And if we think about what's upcoming for them, they've got Detroit, not necessarily the greatest hitter's park, but any dog can have their day. And then Atlanta. And there are some prime real estate opportunities that Wyatt Langford can really crush a ball into the seats for. And if he wants to make a mega statement, if he were to hit it opposite field up over into the porch area, man, you have to feel like it's coming soon, right? We've waited long, and I mean long, for Wyatt to make the most of a pitch and a mistake pitch over the middle of the plate. He just hasn't gotten the chance to yet, but that's okay. We do have to be patient. If we're going to be patient with the entire team, or if we're going to be patient with one individual, we have to be patient vice versa. So what I mean by that is if we're going to be patient with Wyatt Langford still looking for his first home run, we need to be also patient with the fact that the Rangers are a 500 team right now, just 16 games into the season. Like, we could get worked up about certain losses or certain wins. That's fine. But again, this team is the reigning World Series champions, right? Everybody is zeroing in on them. Like, they are the team to beat right now more than anybody else. The Rangers have to play like they're still hunting for something, not that they're the ones being hunted. And it was something that I was listening to during the broadcast today. I believe it was Emily Jones brought it up on Bally Sports Southwest, that Bruce Bochy had told her that, like, we've got to change the mindset, and we got to have the mentality that we're not the hunted, and rather we're the hunter. We got to get back in that mindset. And I love that energy from Boch, making sure that his players are aware that, like, yeah, we won last year, but that was last year. This is this year. We got to go out and prove it to ourselves again. So the long stretch of baseball continues. As I mentioned, they've played 10 games of the 17 consecutive games that they are going to play. And up next is going to be Detroit and then Atlanta a few games later. And that's going to be 4 of them will be in Detroit. And then the other 3 will be in Atlanta. And then the Rangers will finally have their first off day after those 17 games in a row. And thank goodness, because like I said, the recurring theme is they look relatively tired right now. So hopefully they improve from that standpoint. So here's the good news about the Detroit series, and this will kind of kick off the injury updates that we have, and there are plenty of injury updates that we need to get into. Michael Lorenzen is expected to make his Rangers debut tomorrow. He's expected to get the start, funny enough, against his his second most recent employer. He was traded to the Phillies midseason from the Detroit Tigers, where he had an all-star campaign in the first half of the year. I would have felt differently about the news of Michael Lorenzen getting his first Rangers start if not for the news that Cody Bradford is headed for the injured list. Had Cody Bradford, and this is by no means his fault, and everything the reporting has said is that they're not too concerned about the severity of the injury. They just want to give him a couple of starts off and be as cautious as possible. He's dealing with lower back soreness retroactive to his last start on the 11th. And you can only hope that it's not anything more severe. And I like the precautionary approach, but man, is it just another miniature slap in the face to what has already been an injury decimated season. I mean, Kennedy Landry, the great beat writer over at MLB.com covering the Rangers. Here's everybody that's on the Rangers injured list that she posted as I'm recording this 5 hours ago. Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Tyler Mahle, now Cody Bradford, Josh Sborz, Brock Burke, Jonathan Hernandez, Carson Coleman, Josh Young, Nathaniel Lowe, Justin Foscue. That's 11 considerably important guys to this Rangers Major League roster and the 40-man that are not available right now, and who knows when they'll be available. At least for a majority of them. We have an important injury update on one of the Rangers starters that we'll get to shortly. But that just kind of took the wind out of the sails this morning, finding out that Bradford had to be placed on the IL. He's been off to such a terrific start this year. He's won every start that he's pitched in. His ERA is below 1.5. Like, he has been awesome to start the year, especially for a rookie that has been asked to fill a pretty significant void in this Rangers rotation, and he's delivered 100%. It's a bummer that he's now on the shelf for a little while. But I'm curious to see how Michael Lorenzen does. He was another one of those starting pitchers that did not get signed until very late into the offseason, like Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery. Jordan Montgomery hasn't debuted yet. Blake Snell has made 2 starts for the Giants, and they've both been miserable. So hopefully the approach of letting Lorenzen slow play his debut will be a benefit, because I know the Tigers have been pretty frisky to start the year, and they've got a lot of talented young players as well. So hopefully Lorenzen can make the most of his debut start. Other injury updates. We mentioned Bradford going to the IL. The corresponding move was calling up Cole Winn and him making his major league debut today. So that literally only happened within the last 24 hours. Brock Burke was a name that I mentioned in Kennedy Landry's long list of guys who are on the injured list. So after Friday, I had mentioned he had a rough outing Friday, despite the win. He punched a wall and broke his non-throwing hand, which I believe is the right hand, after the Friday night win. And I get it. There's times where you're just frustrated beyond all hell, and you have to let out your anger and your frustration and your energy in some way, shape, or form. And so many times, I don't know why, and I'm not going to get deep into it, but so many times it results in a part of the body being flung at a concrete wall, and I really don't understand why. If you want to take your anger or frustration out on something, why not it be like a punching bag or one of the exercise ball, like the blow up exercise balls that you do crunches on, or stuff like that you do abdomen work on, not the medicine balls or anything like that. I just wish there was a better way for Brock to have handled this frustration, because it was a very frustrating outing for him. And there was a lot of finger pointing after he hit Yordan Alvarez. Like there was a lot of tension that was built up from that outing, right? And he obviously wasn't happy with himself. And I respect that he wasn't happy with himself, but he's got to find a way to better channel that anger. And I think he would say the exact same thing. His manager basically said the same thing, but he's got to be better controlled as far as that's concerned, because they need him right now. Austin Pruitt has been called up in his place. I'm very curious to see how the transaction log will look like tomorrow when Michael Lorenzen is officially activated and joins the team in Detroit. They're going to have to make space for him. I just don't know how they're going to approach it. We'll see. A couple more significant injury updates. Justin Foscue, top prospect who got called up and then and landed on the IL with, I think it was an oblique strain. He's now been transferred to the 60-day IL. So he joins Tyler Mahle, Jacob deGrom, and Josh Young. So one after the other, apparently, when it comes to these infielders for the Rangers, now down Young and Foscue and then Lowe. But that perfectly transitions us into the update on Nathaniel Lowe. A couple of nights ago, he began a rehab assignment with AAA Round Rock, and he had his first outing, I believe, yesterday, and he did pretty well. So a sign of good things to come, I guess you could say, in terms of returning players and players making their way back to this team. And they definitely need a boost out of Nathaniel Lowe right now. It's not because Jared Walsh is struggling by any means. Jared, as we've emphasized, has done great filling in. Same with Ezekiel Duran, just covering bases in the meantime. But Nathaniel Lowe is a big reason as to why this team got as far as it did last year. And they need his bat and, more importantly, his defense they need back in the order. So it'll be important to have him back when they can get him back. Hopefully within this week. And then I'm curious to see how they handle the transaction again. All right, so let's run through the pitching matchups upcoming for this Detroit series. And then we're going to talk about another starter, and that'll do it for this edition of Bleav in Texas Rangers. So game one, Tigers are 9-6 on the year. I've mentioned that they've got a lot of young prospects, and they have had a frisky start to the year. That's the reflection right there. First outing will be Michael Lorenzen, I mentioned, as he's making his Rangers debut, against Reese Olson, who's one of the young righties for Detroit. An 0-1 record and a 5.40 ERA to start the year for Reese. We don't know who the starter is going to be for Texas on Tuesday, at least to my recollection. And then Casey Mize, the former number 1 overall pick, will get the start for the Tigers. He has no record on the season and a 4.82 ERA, We're not sure who the Wednesday starter is going to be, and just jumping ahead, we're not sure who the Thursday starter is going to be. But for the rest of Detroit's rotation, they have their ace, Tarek Skubal, the lefty. He's going to be pitching on Wednesday in the afternoon. That he has a 2-0 record and a 2.08 ERA. And then one of their offseason additions, Kenta Maeda, who's not had the greatest start to the season, 0-1 and a 6 ERA, but he's a veteran, and he was a Cy Young runner-up back when he was with the Dodgers before he got traded to the Twins, and now he's ended up in Detroit. Working his way back from a lot of injury history, so hopefully, or it'll be curious to see, I should say, how he performs with so many question marks around this Rangers rotation right now. And then I'm curious to see how the rotation continues, how they want to place, like, where's John Gray's next start going to be versus where Dane Dunning's next start is going to be, and how are they going to handle the absence of Cody Bradford in the meantime? Curious to see how that all handles. All right, last thing we're going to touch on, because he had his third start in Round Rock, and this is a name where I wonder if he actually gets a big league call-up this year. He's still only 23 years old. I'm referring to Jack Leiter, of course, the son of Al, and the Rangers' former number 2 overall pick a couple of years ago. He's dealing again. This by far his best start of the season, taking on Oklahoma City, who is the Dodgers affiliate, if I'm not mistaken. He took the loss, unfortunately, but he got himself a quality start, throwing 6 innings, allowing 6 hits, 3 runs, all of them home runs. So maybe that's something to worry about when it comes to Jack. Hit a batter, but he struck out 10. He struck out 10 of the men he faced in a game he got handed an L because he gave up 3 runs. Like, one of the better starts of the year for Jack, especially with the high amount of innings that he had to throw. And that puts him now on the minor league season at 1-1, a 3.77 ERA with 14 and a third innings, I should say, 25 strikeouts and a WHIP just below 1. He's exactly what you would have hoped for when the Rangers drafted him, right? And now the fact that he's already in AAA and this team continues to keep getting beat up by its starting pitching depth, I wonder if Jack is going to make an appearance, not like sometime soon, but I wonder if in the next couple of months, the wheels start turning and Jack continues to pitch well. And as a result, it leads to him getting the big league call-up. So as far as the young guys that we're keeping an eye on, we're obviously watching Wyatt while he's here. That's why we've got this.
Wyatt Watch.
And then we're also keeping an eye on Jack and how he's doing down in AAA. And maybe he can join the team soon and provide a much-needed boost. And that's going to do it for this edition of Bleav in Texas Rangers after the series finale against the Houston Astros in Houston. Up next for the Rangers, they've got 4 games in Detroit, and we will be back with you following that series finale against the Tigers, and then we'll get you ready for the upcoming 3-game set against the Atlanta Braves. So until next time, Bleav in Texas Rangers.